Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Studio One on this Thursday, November 5th. Hard to believe we're already into November. Even harder to believe that Thanksgiving is only 3 weeks away, leaving 49 shopping days until Christmas. I wonder if time is going as fast for you as it is for me. I'm Tom Deering. It's good to have you with us. Up ahead on this half hour, we'll be joined by a key witness in the Oliver North hearings, former ambassador to Costa Rica, Louis Tambs. Also with us, Al Clausen, who heads a national research project on drinking problems in women. We'll also talk to B-1 bomber and pilot and squadron commander Lieutenant Colonel William Currents. However, first we'll go to the news desk with Courtney Bateman. Courtney?
Thank you, Tom. Caspar Weinberger today stepped down as Secretary of Defense after several days of speculation. Weinberger was responsible for a large military buildup during his 7 years in President Reagan's cabinet, and Reagan praised him for his loyalty and competence. National Security Advisor Frank Carlucci is expected to succeed Weinberger in the Defense Department. For decades now, medical students have studied books, poked around cadavers, and taken written exams to learn their craft. But Studio One reporter Kristen Johnson says the UND Medical School has added another element: live patients with simulated diseases.
The field of medical technology is expanding rapidly. In order to keep up, new technologies and a changing curriculum are needed. UND's medical school is keeping up by incorporating a program called Focal Problems, which helps train new doctors for clinical performance. Associate Dean Dr. William Goodall said this program utilizes simulated patients.
We hire various people in the community and teach them to simulate a disease process. And when I say teach them to simulate a disease process, we will train them to give a history appropriate to a given illness, and frequently we'll also train them to exhibit signs that would be present in a given illness.
The use of simulated patients helps students learn problem-solving techniques better.
We're trying to train them to solve patient problems. Therefore, if we use patients with simulated illnesses as exam settings, we think that the student will learn much better medical problem solving, which he's going to have to use in practice or in his residency.
Senior class president of UND's medical school, Fritz Arneson, says the Focal Problems program greatly benefits students by providing smoother transitions from classroom to hospitals. With philosophies changing, more than just basic sciences are needed.
The students are expected to learn the basic sciences that they need to deal with the problem. And when we look at the performance of students who have learned that way, it certainly matches and in some cases exceeds the performance of students who have been taught in a traditional manner.
Associate Dean Goodall says programs like Focal Problems, which encourage self-learning, make retaining information easier for medical students, thus putting it to use when initiating treatment on real patients. Kristen Johnson, Studio One News.
And finally, Bud Westman today officially announced his bid for a third term as Grand Forks mayor. If elected, Westman will be the first person in Grand Forks history to serve 3 terms as mayor. Tom?
Thank you, Courtney. There are a couple nationally recognized events being sponsored locally on the campus of the University of North Dakota. Tomorrow, National Chemistry Day. To honor the occasion, there will be tours of the Energy and Minerals Research Center and of the USDA Human Nutrition Lab, plus lectures and experiments throughout the day. You can call campus information for more details. Then you can easily move from test tubes to tenors. In the celebration of National Music Week, there will be a concert featuring new musical works tomorrow night at 8 o'clock at the Josephine Campbell Recital Hall. As we turn to weather meteorologist Jay Searles joins us. Jay?
Thank you, Tom. Currently at 4 in the Grand Forks area under a partly cloudy sky. The temperature is 43 degrees, the humidity is 42%, and the winds are calm. Taking a look at our nation's weather map, yesterday a very warm high of 91 degrees in Dallas, Texas. This morning's low was a chilly 17 at Warroad, Minnesota. An area of low pressure or storm system up over eastern Quebec has pushed a cold front down into the south central U.S. and bringing some showers and scattered showers and thunderstorms over the Florida Peninsula. The area of low pressure over the Great Lakes is spreading lake effect snows, and some very strong winds is causing some hazardous driving conditions. There we go. And an area of low pressure is pushed in from the Gulf, from the Pacific Ocean, spreading showers and thunderstorms across Nevada and Arizona and parts of California. Even Las Vegas had a very heavy thunderstorm this morning with some golf ball size hail reported. A large area of high pressure is pushed in from central Canada into the central U.S., bringing some very cold temperatures to the south and through our region. That's what it looks like across the United States today. I'm meteorologist Jay Searles. I'll be back a little bit later in the program with the Red River Valley weekend forecast. Tom?
Okay, thank you, Jay. In way of entertainment, a few upcoming events to make mention of. At the Chester Fritz Auditorium, Monday, November 9th, famous people players will perform with the use of black light theater and life-size puppet artistry. A Little Like Magic has a 7:30 start. And in its continuing country artist series, the Fritz brings in Merle Haggard next Thursday night, November 12th, with 7 and 10 o'clock performances. Tickets for both shows are on sale at the Chester Fritz and all Centig outlets. And if you haven't already heard, 1987 Miss America Kelly Cash will appear in concert next Friday, the 13th, at the Lysaker Gymnasium on the University of Crookston campus at 7:30 p.m. Tickets are available at the door and in Columbia Mall. When we return, we'll meet the former ambassador to Costa Rica, Louis Tambs.
How do you find out when an administration is corrupt? How do you find out when a government is hiding the truth? How do you find out about those who would like you not to find out? To become better informed about the role of a free press and how it protects your rights, contact the First Amendment Center.
I've got a secret all this week on the golden years of television. It's got funky dancing, kooky hairdos, guests who are just bursting with energy, a little romance, and the lovable Miss Lucy. It's just packed with burning issues.
Is this the kind of thing you might be apt to do for a living?
Would it be in the Cushion family?
Why can't you do something like that?
Is it something that's eaten? What?
Grab a hold of your seat and tune in to the golden years of television, all this week on NCTV.
Welcome back to Studio One. Our first guest was a consultant to the National Security Council before being appointed as United States Ambassador to Colombia from 1983 to 1985, and then Ambassador to Costa Rica until January of this last year. He may be familiar to you as a key witness in the Oliver North hearings. We welcome to Studio One former Ambassador Louis Tambs.
Thank you, Tom.
And can I call you Lou?
If you would, please.
You call me Tom.
Splendid.
Bringing you to North Dakota, it comes at a very controversial time. Of all times to be an ambassador of Costa Rica, almost sounds like you pulled out at a good time in January.
Well, I teach at Arizona State University. You may have heard that we had a Roosevelt team last year.
Oh, I heard.
We don't have it this year. But last year we did. And the president of Arizona State was very, very kind to me, but he made it clear back in 1986 that he expected me to return to teaching in the spring of 1987. And so I took his suggestion, right, because you don't throw away tenure or a salary lightly, right? So it was time to come home.
I'm sorry. What characteristics must an ambassador have? Why did they select you?
Well, there's an old saying, Tom, you're better off to be lucky than smart, right? We'll start with that. So there are probably a number of reasons. I was a member of the so-called Santa Fe Committee, which drew up recommendations for Latin American policy for a future Republican president, and Ronald Reagan became that president. Additionally, I have written for many years numerous books and articles on the importance of Latin America to the United States, and strategic, and also the fact that we have great cultural and other similarities, and we are all Americans. And I suspect that was it.
As an ambassador, who does the ambassador answer to?
Well, all ambassadors answer to the president. You have a presidential commission, which of course is confirmed by a vote of the Senate. And the fact is that the president of the United States is the only U.S. official elected by all of the people. And so consequently, obviously, you're under the executive branch. And you report, through the Secretary of State and then through the subsecretaries. But as often happens, the president will give you a special commission. Is that when I was sent to Colombia, the White House told me to go down there and do what I could about narcotics. I did that. And then when they sent me to Costa Rica, they told me to go do the freedom fighter bit, and I did that. So I'm surprised they didn't send me to Lebanon by the time they got through.
And with you particularly, not an easy job, an assassination attempt on your life?
Yes, there were a number in Colombia, and of course also my wife and family. But through all, we're talking about trying to save the lives of young people And the men and women in the United States Foreign Service and the embassy were very sound, very strong, very gallant, and they were under continual death threat too. The embassy itself was bombed 3 times while I was there. My own house residence was car bombed, and there were other efforts. The fact is that we're talking about narcotics, you know, which there is a clear linkage in Colombia to the communist guerrillas. And we're talking about, as you've probably seen on this campus, so I have in mind, of destruction of young people. And sometimes I used to get very discouraged, but I think, well, if I could only save one young person, it'd be worth it.
Once an ambassador, always an ambassador. When you pull out as an ambassador, do you want to stick your neck in situations that you know you could advise?
Well, obviously I support the president. And you know, that's one reason I was very kind to accept an invitation to come up here to North Dakota and discuss the president's policies in regard to Central America. Because I'm convinced, as indeed the president is, that the future should belong to the free, and that it is really the role of the United States in the world, I think, to support people who are willing to fight for their own countries.
Often in situations, ambassadors have to roll up their sleeves and do dirty work.
Well, it depends how you define dirty work, doesn't it? It's a very difficult job. You work 60 to 80 hours a week. The fact is you're always on call. You know, people may call you, officers may call you up at 2 or 3 in the morning. You have to make what could be a life or death decision. And of course you're also representing not only the President of the United States, but also the American people, which means that obviously you have to try and maintain a certain amount of dignity and decorum. And
I would think, excuse me, Lou, I would think that it must be very frustrating for you with a man who has a wealth of knowledge and insight onto political affairs and is not able to give that information out. What goes through your mind, particularly talking about the Oliver North hearings? How do you deal with that kind of thing?
Well, I think Oliver North is a good friend of mine. I served with him on the National Security Council. He and I worked together on the rescue operation in Grenada. And we also worked together on some occurrences in Central America. And I think he's a man of honor. I think he's a great American. In fact, he is the godfather of my 18-month-old boy. So I have very close family ties to him, as well as, shall we say, patriotic ties, if you wish to call it that.
Louis Tambs, it's a privilege to have you.
Thanks a lot,
we
Tom.
Appreciate
God bless.
You taking it. God bless you. Former Ambassador Louis Tambs, he was speaking tonight at 7 o'clock in the Red River Room at the Memorial Union. The topic, why not freedom for Central America? After this break, we'll talk with B-1 bomber pilot Lieutenant Colonel William Currents.
Did you know that almost 1/5 of our Navy is made up of civilians who leave their jobs at a moment's notice to help defend our country? They are members of the Naval Reserve. They take time off from their jobs to help defend our country. But for them to do that job right, they need time to train. If you're an employer, give them the time they need. With your help, our country will remain strong and ready. Support the National Guard and Reserve. Protect their future while they protect yours.
Welcome back to Studio One. In 1981, Congress ordered 100 B-1 bombers at a cost of $20.5 billion, more than any warplane in history. They are built to perform 3 basic roles: to carry nuclear bombs, conventional bombs, and cruise missiles. Today joining us is a B-1 bomber pilot and squadron commander, Lieutenant Colonel Bill Currents. Bill, it's good to have you with us.
Thank you, Tom.
Can you define what is the difference, obviously, between flying and then also being a commander?
Well, my mission within the Strategic Air Command is to ensure the combat capability of our crews. That role there is to make sure that they're all ready to do the mission that we're tasked to do. SAC's mission is nuclear deterrence, And my role in that is to provide the mission with combat capability.
How do you break up your time between being a pilot and that? Is it a 50-50?
No, it depends upon the task at hand. I'm also an instructor pilot. I fly with all my crew members, as well as I'm part of an integral crew that could take a B-1 in a combat mission at any time. In addition, I run the day-to-day affairs of the squadron to ensure the training, the personnel, and the equipment are up to speed.
Bill, how many crew members on a B-1 bomber?
A B-1 has 4 crew members, 2 pilots up front, an offensive systems operator, and a defensive systems operator in the rear.
You guys don't fight over who gets to fly, huh?
No, sir, there's more than enough for everyone.
Enough to go around. Being a pilot and flying various planes, from your standpoint of view, what is some of the more impressive characteristics of a B-1 bomber?
Well, the B-1 represents a technological capability that has been unforeseen before. It's the most capable bomber in the world today. That capability, that combat capability that we train for every day, provides us with the capability to undermine or underpin deterrence, and that's our primary mission.
As a pilot, would you consider the B-1 bomber then? Is that the elite of flying?
Well, the B-1 crew members and the people who support it are very highly trained and very scrupulously interviewed and selected for this assignment. It's an extremely challenging job, and everyone within the Strategic Air Command, from maintenance people to support people, everyone contributes to that mission, and it's not just the pilots or the crew members that make this happen.
Bill, what kind of training is involved with the B-1 bomber?
With the B-1, you initially go through a combat crew training school in Dallas Air Force Base in Texas. Your time is split about in half between academics and actually flying the aircraft. It takes about 5 months.
Oh, that's not that long.
Well, that's only on top of highly experienced people that they've put into the B-1. Undergraduate pilot training takes approximately a year, plus I had 15 years experience before I went into the B-1.
Bill, when a pilot such as yourself has to deal with a nuclear controversy, have you found that the image of a pilot, a kind of a glorified flyboy image that it has and at once had, has that image changed with nuclear controversy? You still respect it, or do you find yourself running into people that will kind of oppose what you're doing?
I don't think that aircrew members in general are elitist in any way. They realize that they have a particular mission to do. I don't think they hesitate, because we train to a standard to provide the United States with a combat capability. Again, that combat capability translates directly into this nation's philosophy of deterrence and preventing war, which has worked very well for over 40 years.
Where else are B-1s being flown, or where are they currently now? How many are there, and where are they?
Okay, we have an operational and a training squadron at Dallas Air Force Base in Texas. At Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota, there are 2 squadrons of approximately 35 aircraft. The 3rd unit to come up is here at Grand Forks. We'll have 17 aircraft. And the last main operating base will be at McConnell Air Force Base in Kansas.
Do you yourself, when you step into the cockpit to fly, at that point, do you have to leave behind you particular opinions, emotions? Do you have to resolve the issue of the potential of dropping a nuclear weapon? Do you have to resolve that before you step into a cockpit?
No, most of the, as you know, the volunteer services are volunteer throughout across the military today. People go into the service are very professional. They train to a very high standard. They understand what they're doing, and they understand the mission. They also understand that it is a last stop effort to stop an adversary who would be otherwise attacking you. I think most people look at it from a retaliatory point of view.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's been interesting. We've noted before that when cosmonauts and astronauts meet in space, all of a sudden world peace doesn't seem like such a distant thing. They look at a small, fragile world. Does your perceptions change with the purpose of a B-1 bomber as altitude changes?
No, I don't think so. I think what we were equating there is sort of like apples and oranges. They have a different mission than a Soviet bomber pilot or a U.S. bomber pilot. We are an extension of the combat capability of those nations.
It must be quite a letdown getting in the car and driving after flying a B-1 bomber.
No, holding down to 55 is a well-proven fact that you're very safe there, and we train very safely.
Very interesting. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Tom.
We really appreciate the time. B-1 bomber pilot, Lieutenant Colonel William Currents. When Studio One continues, a look at drinking problems in women.
please volunteer for the American Red Cross?
How does this man consistently draw 2,000 students a year to New York's most talked about film class? How does he attract the finest creative talent in the film world? Guests like Woody Allen, Robert De Niro, Martin Scorsese, Dustin Hoffman, Deborah Winger, William Hurt, Steven Spielberg, Robin Williams, Robert Redford, Shirley MacLaine, just to name a few? Why do his students describe him as brilliant, charismatic, and his class provocative, inspiring, exhilarating? Find out for yourself. Richard Brown's Screening Room, a whole new way to look at movies. Watch it on NCTV.
Welcome back. Our next guest is working on a 10-year study researching problem drinking in women. He's authored several publications, including a book on sexuality, morality, and attitudes. Al Clausen joins us on this segment of Studio One. Thanks, Mr. Clausen, for taking the time. Al, you're into your 7th year of researching a 10-year project. How did it start?
Well, first of all, I should give credit to Sharon Welsnack. Dr. Welsnack is a professor with the medical school in neuroscience, and she's really a international authority on women's drinking, and it was through my acquaintance with her at back when I was at the Institute for Sex Research in Indiana University that I got involved. So I'm really the project director serving her needs and her husband's needs in terms of doing the research. I'm not the chief.
And it's a federally funded project?
Yeah, we've. I was just looking at a report for this past year. We've now been able to use about $1 million worth of federal funds in doing a national survey and analyzing the results. And we have a 5-year follow-up, and another 5 years we'll do a full follow-up.
Now, the subjects that you have surveyed, we are located in North Dakota, but it's a national cross-section, is that right?
Yeah, it's a representative national sample of women, about 1,000 women.
At this point in the survey, again, into your 7th year of research, what are we finding out about problem drinking in women? And first of all, let me ask you, how do we define problem drinking? What determines problem drinking?
Well, problem drinking can be defined different ways, but it would, for example, have to do with whether it's something that people do in an effort to solve or cope with problems when it doesn't really solve problems. Or you could say that problem drinking also consists of the drinking that people do that results in problems, problems in their behavior or how they relate to other people, how they're able to function or not able to function. So, problem drinking is a very complicated thing, and a lot of people do what one could say was very healthy drinking, controlled drinking, sensible drinking that doesn't result from or cause problems. So.
Now, from your perspective, many hold the opinion that alcoholism is a disease. You're bringing up social elements that contribute to that. So, do you disagree with that type of opinion?
Well, alcoholism was a part of what I was talking about, but it's only a small part. If you look at the whole population, there's, maybe 20% of the adult women in the United States drink at a level that we would call moderate or heavy. And of those 20%, there's only a much smaller fraction that could be considered, what should I say, pathological or alcoholic or whatever. Maybe 3, 4, 5% of the whole population of women that actually get to that point of really serious problems.
You had mentioned to me that you had found in your research that drinking and the level of it, whether it's low, whether it's moderate, whether it's heavy, is a lot tied up into women's roles in society. Can you elaborate on that? I remember you mentioning that when women feel that they are contributing to something, they're being responsible with something, we find the drinking go down. Is that accurate to your finding?
Well, see, a lot of people think in terms of roles in life and role conflicts, and how many different things can you be committed to at once and still function. And so as women became more liberated in the past decade or so, people were supposing that this liberation resulted in their having too many roles and too many conflicts, like having a job and housekeeping and mothering and so on, that somehow there would be more drinking as a result of those conflicts. We're not finding that. We're actually finding that that women are more likely to react in terms of maybe a kind of an effort to medicate their pain when they lose roles, because the meaning in our lives comes from the roles that we have, and you know, what we feel we can do meaningfully involves how many roles we've got. And so at different stages of life, the women that have fewer roles or are losing some of these meaningful roles are the ones that seem more likely to be drinking problematically.
Thanks for joining us today.
Well, okay.
We appreciate it. Al Clausen, Project Director for Problem Drinking in Women. You'll be speaking next week as a part of a Women's Center conference entitled Women and Men Together, Boundaries and Bridges. Studio One continues after this.
Do you like music?
I do like music. Very much.
Pick something groovy, Alex.
Don't be a fool, Alex. Pick Audiophilia, the best concert show around. Every week a new concert. Motown, rock, new music, folk, funk, and a whole lot more. Audiophilia, every week on NCTV.
Swell.
In our country, where physical illness gets the most advanced medical treatment, a disease that affects 35 million Americans goes virtually untreated.
Why don't you just get up and pull yourself together? Snap out of it.
The disease is mental illness, a disease that's often misunderstood, so its victims wind up neglected, isolated.
There is nothing more I can do for you.
But mental illness can be treated once you learn to see the sickness. For an informative booklet, call the American Mental Health Fund.
University of North Dakota head basketball coach Dave Gunther unveils his 1987-88 version of Sioux Cagers tomorrow night at the Hislop Sports Center. They'll host the Brandon University Bobcats from Manitoba. Tip-off is at 7:30. And Sioux football Saturday at Memorial Stadium with a 1:30 start. They take on the University of South Dakota. Meteorologist Jay Searles will give us a final look at our forecast. Jay?
Thank you, Tom. Taking a look at our forecast map for tomorrow morning shows that an area of high pressure is pushed way down into the southwest. Winds will switch from the south out across the tri-state area, bringing in some warmer air for the weekend. Temperatures tomorrow mornings will be in the teens across central and southern Canada, down through the 20s in our region, and down in the 30s across Nebraska and out through western Montana and Wyoming, along with some dense fog. The warm front is already showing up, spreading into western Canada. We'll have forecast for the deer hunting weekend is looking pretty good. We will have a low tonight under a partly cloudy sky of 23 degrees with light and variable winds. For Friday, we can expect mostly sunny skies again. The temperature. The winds will switch out of the south at 5 to 10 miles per hour, a high tomorrow of 38 degrees. Saturday will be mostly sunny, a little warmer with the high in the mid-40s. Sunday we'll have increasing clouds, and the high in the low 40s. That's with forecast for the weekend. I'm meteorologist Jay Searles. Have a great weekend. Tom?
Okay, thank you, Jay. You too. We'd like to thank our guests, Louis Thames, Al Clausen, and Lieutenant Colonel William Kearns for being a part of our program today. From all of us here at Studio One, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.